Hi, everyone. My name is Lucia Wang, and today we're going to talk about what is real love. That's a common question that I hear, and it's it's a question that I think needs to be answered because, especially given the divorce rate nowadays, a lot of people are confused and don't even know what real love is. We all experience what a bad relationship is, right? And a dysfunctional relationship, and there's so much heartache and divorce out there that a lot of us tend to forget what real love is. So today I'd like to address this, and it's going to be a short video, but I think it's worth talking about. And how I'm going to answer this question is by four signs of real love. The four signs, and I'm going to designate that by the spelling of the word real, REAL. So the first sign is respect, is when partners respect each other as opposed to disapprove of each other. So I'm going to give an example. I'm going to talk about both so that we get a picture of what it's like to respect someone and what it's like to not respect and to disapprove. When it's real love, your partner respects, trusts, and admires you, treats you like an equal partner, always gives you the benefit of the doubt, believes in you, and gives you grace as needed when you make mistakes sometimes. So let me just stop there. This is important. Re- Respect it encompasses all these things, and when you know it's real love, when they trust you, admire you, treats you like an equal partner, gives you the benefit of the doubt, believes in you, and gives you grace as needed when you make mistakes. Um, Now, on the other hand, when your partner disapproves of you, you feel often defensive, criticized, inferior to your partner, emotionally drained from being constantly corrected by your partner, frequent power struggles, feeling misunderstood, and walking on eggshells. In the long term, if left unchecked, it can result in a destructive, toxic relationship. So, the opposite of respect is when you disapprove of each other. And folks, it's this is something that we need to pay attention to, because if this disrespectful kind of behavior and you disapprove of each other, it definitely eventually erodes at your relationship, and more often than not, it becomes very destructive and toxic. Okay, so let me just say this again: when your partner disapproves of you, you often feel defensive, criticized, inferior to your partner, emotionally drained from being constantly corrected by your partner, frequent power struggles, feeling misunderstood, and walking on eggshells. So, this is probably a good time to, as we're going over all these signs, kind of think about where you are in your relationship and with your partner. If any of these trigger an emotion and you can identify with any of these signs, you probably need to reassess and discuss with your partner ways you can improve your relationship. Okay, the second sign is the letter E, is to empathize versus desensitize. So to empathize with each other, when it's real love, your partner empathizes with you and feels your emotions, whereas sympathy is just understanding your emotions. Think of it as simply the difference between a stranger and a good friend. A stranger just understands your emotions from an intellectual level, whereas a good friend feels your emotions from a heart level. So if you think about that, if you think about the people in your lives that you consider a friend versus a stranger that you just met off the street, right? If you're expressing your emotions to a stranger, they can they at that point they're just a stranger. There's no emotional tie, so they can understand what you're saying, and they can understand your emotions. That's sympathy, right? But when it's empathy, when it's a good friend, they are already attached to you. They like you. They've already spent enough time with you. They've developed a relationship with you. At that point, if it's healthy relationship, there's a degree of empathy, which means they feel your emotions, not just understand your emotions. The big difference, like between the two, it would be similar to like going to a funeral, right? how often have we been invited to funerals where we really didn't know the person that died, right? But you got invited anyway, and you went, right? Um, and again, same kind of thing. If you go to someone's funeral, if you attend somebody's funeral that you really don't know who that person is that died, you're going to have sympathy for the family, right? For the family members that did know the person on a personal level. So when you're there, while you feel sad, but you're not going to feel exactly the quite love. You're not going to exactly feel the level of emotions that the closer family members feel, which they feel empathy. You would feel sympathy, which is just understanding the situation and what's going on and everyone's emotions. If you're a good friend or a family member that was very close to that person that died, there is definitely empathy involved where you actually those people actually feel they actually feel the emotions, the pain, where as an outsider, as a stranger, you just understand it. So I just want to clarify that because a lot of people, get confused about the difference between sympathy and the word empathy and what the two mean. They're similar, but not when it comes to the actual heart level. Okay, so the opposite of empathy is when you are desensitized to somebody. Okay, when your partner is desensitized to you, you don't feel heard, and your feelings, thoughts, and opinions are not being acknowledged, which ultimately results in you feeling devalued in the relationship. This happens a lot, folks, especially when a relationship is getting to the point that it's gotten to the level where people are not communicating well, they're arguing a lot, and they're not getting along, and their friendship starts to deteriorate. And then one of the first things that you'll notice with these people that in relationships where there's not a very good communication is that the partner is starting to desensitize you. There's a lack of empathy at this point. They don't feel your emotions. Instead, they are desensitized to it. And and what generally happens is that when that happens, we don't feel heard. The person that's being treated that way does not feel that they're being heard. Their feelings, thoughts, and opinions are not being acknowledged. They feel that their opinions don't matter to this person, and ultimately, it's going to result in feeling devalued in the relationship. This goes on long enough where you feel that your partner is not um, valuing you, the things that you're saying, or acknowledging your thoughts and feelings. Eventually, this level of feeling not being heard, you will get to the point that you will not feel valued in the relationship, and that is a serious problem. Okay, so the third thing, the letter A, which is the third sign, which is to accept each other, and that's the opposite of rejecting each other. Okay, when it's real love, your partner accepts you for all your flaws, imperfections, and quirks. You therefore feel valued and worthy for the unique special person that you are. You never feel rejected or feel you're not enough and have to change to meet a standard to gain your partner's approval. So let me say this again. This is important. When the when it's real love, okay, the third sign is to accept each other. Your partner accepts you for all your flaws, imperfections, and quirks. You therefore feel valued and worthy for the unique, special person that you are. You never feel rejected or feel you're not enough and have to change to meet a standard to gain your partner's approval. This is a very sensitive topic when it comes to accepting each other. We all have flaws. None of us are perfect, and we all want to feel that we're accepted. It's the foundation of unconditional love, right? When you love someone for who they are, regardless if of their moods, the good, bad, and ugly of somebody, right? Is when you totally accept somebody in totality of who they are as a person, and that's very important to the welfare and the health of the relationship. And when it's real love, that type of acceptance is there. And the problem with not feeling accepted is that when you start feeling your partner is judging you, or you don't feel you're enough, or you're being compared to someone else, then you feel like you have to change to feel accepted, to gain your partner's approval. And in a healthy relationship, in real love, that should not have to be. You should be loved, liked for who you are as a person, for all your flaws. No one's perfect, right? And that needs to be there for the relationship to be real love. So something to keep in mind. If you feel you have to change or your person's not happy with who you are, that's a red flag that there's problems in the relationship, that the real love is not there. And that needs to be addressed because, and hopefully, if you've seen my earlier videos on the 4 stages of a relationship, it talks about the point, the reality stage is when you finally see somebody for for their true colors, for all their flaws and imperfections. That's the stage that if you've actually have the patience to go through all the stages of the relationship, that's the time to assess whether you can accept that person for who they are before moving to the next stage. Now I realize most of us haven't gone through the 4 stages. All of us, these are things that the mistakes that we've made in life, and we're not here to beat each other up, right? We all make mistakes, but the important thing is to learn from our mistakes, and that's why I did what that's why that video is very important. If you haven't seen it already, I would go back and look at it. The 4 stages of a relationship. It's very important to be aware of the 4 stages and what to expect. And each stage has a time and place, and it's important. And this reality stage is very, very important because at this point you're just dating. You're not committed to each other or married. So this is the opportunity to learn about each other, see that person for all their true colors, right? All their flaws, their imperfections, quirks, everything. And then at that, when you both see each other who you guys really are, you can then assess and decide if this is someone you can live with. Can you accept them for who they are today, not tomorrow? Oftentimes, a lot of the problems in relationships that we hope that this person is going to change after we get committed to them, or after there's a commitment or marriage, that somehow magically our partner is going to change for us. Folks, that's not fair and it's not realistic. You need to ask yourself honestly, when you're dating somebody at that stage, when you see them for who they are, can you accept them for who they are? And it works both ways. Let's not kid ourselves. I think a lot of people, they're good at pointing flaws in other people, but they're not looking in the mirror, right? And that's the beauty of a relationship, is when you're in a relationship, there's so much personal spiritual growth. Not only do you get to learn more about yourself, your partner is also learning a bit about themselves. Because as you interact with somebody, they are a reflection of yourself in many ways, right? Or they reflect parts of yourselves that you don't like. So that's the beauty of relationships, is that it's kind of, I don't want to say it's not really holding each other accountable, but it's just a great way, an opportunity for two people to learn a lot and personally grow and spiritually grow because of the differences that the two people experience, right? And so that's the time that you really need to think about whether you accept somebody, and not think that, hope that they're going to be somebody else later, that you're going to hope that they're going to change later. No, the question is, can you accept them for who they are today? If they don't ever change today, can you live with that? Can you accept them? And there's no right or wrong answer. This is why it's a personal choice, right? When you're dating somebody, there's no right or wrong answer or standard. It's up to you how you feel in your heart and your mind. If you could accept somebody for who they are, can you love that person for who they are? So, and that's important, because if you can, it's real love, right? If you get to the point where at this point in time you don't feel that way, and you don't really like the person, can accept them for who they are, well, then that just tells me that when you were in the dating phase, you weren't really paying attention. And many of us, most of us go through that. Okay, most of us don't really. I wasn't aware of the 4 stages when I was dating. I was when I was younger, I wasn't paying attention, and frankly, there's not really a lot of education out there on how to date, especially years ago. It just wasn't available. Now online, there's a lot of resources, a lot of dating coaches, a lot of helpful information that you can find online, and resources out there. You can read books, all kinds of things, right? But so I don't want to, I don't want us to feel bad about the people, those of us who didn't do things the right way or weren't aware of all these ways of maybe preventing some things from happening. Um, but all we can do at this point is to move forward, do the best we can today, and whatever happens, we make mistakes. That's okay. We're human, right? Learn from your mistakes and then move on. That's the key. So, um, yeah. So if you get to a point in a relationship where you feel like you really can't accept them, and or sometimes people change too, right? I mean that's very possible. We none of us stay the same. The person you met 10 years ago is not going to be the same person you met 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, or 40 years later. So we need to also keep that. That's a reality that we also need to keep in mind too. We cannot hold someone to who they were when we first met them. That's not realistic and it's not fair because we all change, even yourself included. All of us are constantly evolving as human beings, and as a result, the relationship will evolve as well. So we're just gonna have to just take life as it comes, and with every change in life, it gives you another opportunity to evaluate the situation and the person that changed. Can you accept them for who they are at that time? So today is relative, right? 10 years from now, if your partner changes to they changed a little bit and they're not the same they were 10 years ago, okay, that's fine. Can you accept that person for for their new changes for who they are today? Right? It's the same question. Um, and hopefully you can. If you're mature and you realize that all of us change in time, nothing's guaranteed that we're going to stay the same, then we have to make adjustments in life sometimes. It's called adaptation, right? We adjustments, adaptations. As human beings, I really feel as we get older, we become more flexible, more adaptive, and that's in life general. We all have to be that way because life's not going to be happy all the time. It's not going to be filled with roses, right? It's not going to always be um, wonderful and pleasant. There are tragedy and things that happen in life that makes us take pause, that temporarily throws us off a little, makes us unhappy. But at that moment, we have to be able to flex, just like a tree when it bends, right? We can't be so rigid. Otherwise, if a storm comes, it'll just break. It'll just break you, right? So if you could imagine like a weeping willow tree that kind of bends with the wind, that I think in life, as we get further and we grow into our relationships, excuse me, I think there's an element of that where we need to be we do become more flexible, more adaptive to the changes, more accepting of the changes, more, and then we just find a way to adjust ourselves to accommodate those changes that are happening in our relationship. And usually the changes, and then keep in mind that's with the assumption that changes aren't destructive, right? If your partner changes for the worse, they're destructive, they're into addictions, they cheat on you. I mean, that's different. We're not talking about those extremities of changes. Well, I'm talking about just normal ebbs and flows of changes in life, right? 20 years later, your partner is maybe 10 pounds heavier than they were when they first met you. Other examples could be weight. It could be um, maybe they went through a lot the last 10 years. Maybe they lost a lot of close family members and they're not as cheerful as they used to be when they first met you. I'm not saying that they can never change to become cheerful again, but just saying at any moment in time, that person has changed and they're not the same person you met when you first met them. That's when you need to kind of sit back and ask and realize assess the change, right? If it's not destructive or harmful to your life, then it's something that you could probably be flexible with, and be more flexible to your partner and maintain that real love. Okay. And the fourth sign is L for like versus to despise. Now, this sounds kind of weird because usually when you're at that point that you're married or you're in a long-term relationship and you already profess your love to that person, you would think that the assumption is that you like the person. But it's kind of odd because I often hear people say, "Well, I love so and so, but I don't like that person." So that's kind of has an opposite meaning, and it's kind of confusing to a lot of us when we hear that. And I sometimes when I hear that, I'm still confused about that, to be honest with you. But I think when people say that, it's more of the fact that they're saying it from an obligation standpoint. For instance, you love your parents, they might be crazy. This is just an example. Your parents might be crazy, but you love them because they're your blood related, family. But you may not like them, right? Um, so I think it's more of it's saying it, using it in those terms. Love is not really, when you say it that way. When you say, well, I love my family but I don't like them, that's, I wouldn't say that's real love, right? That's more like, well, you can you can say it's love because you accept them for the way they are, but you don't like who they are, right? When you say you don't like somebody, you really don't like who they are. So actually, let me take that back, as I'm thinking through this out loud. Um, if you love your family member but you don't like them, it's not real love. You're just basically tolerating them because there's a remote connection, or there's a blood connection, right? But that's not real love when you're just tolerating somebody, or just saying, yeah, you love them, or you feel obligated because you're a family member that you have to love them. But when you don't, but in the same breath, when you say you don't like somebody, it's not real love, because as I'm saying here for the fourth sign, when it's real love, you like that person. Okay, your partner actually likes the essence of who you are, meaning all your flaws, imperfections, and quirks. They love you unconditionally because they truly like you. Your partner feels very blessed daily and is humbly thankful and grateful for your love every day. Um, so let me just say that again, because I think it's important for us to differentiate and understand what like is in real love. Um, when it's real love, your partner actually likes the essence of who you are, meaning all of your flaws, your imperfections, and your quirks. They love you unconditionally because they truly like you. Your partner feels very blessed daily and is humbly thankful and grateful for your love every day. Now, those of us who've been married a long time or been in a relationship for a long time, uh, somehow this like factor gets lost. We often feel, if you've been in a relationship long enough, you feel like you take each other for granted. That usually happens when you forget why you like that person, why you fell in love with that person to begin with, because you like that person, right? When we take each other for granted, it becomes it becomes like a second nature thing to us that we don't even like acknowledge anymore. We just take it for granted, right? It would be like taking for granted the air we breathe. We don't realize how important it is until we can't breathe anymore, right? Same thing with a relationship. It's easy that you've been married for several years, and you're in a long-term relationship for several years. You've known somebody for a very long time. It's easy to take each other for granted and forget the importance, the significance of that person to you when you first fell in love with them and why you like them. So on the other hand, if you when you despise each other, when your partner despises you, you feel you have been taken for granted, you don't feel appreciated for who you are, and instead you feel you must change yourself to be someone you're not to make your partner happy. Now that is not a good thing. So let me just say this again. When your partner despises you, you feel that you've been taken for granted and you don't feel appreciated for who you are, and instead feel you must change yourself to be someone you're not to make your partner happy. We've talked about this earlier when we started to when we started on this, and that's not a good feeling when you get to the point that you feel that your partner is not happy with you, doesn't like you anymore, despises you, and and makes comments or hints of how they would like to see changes in you, that they don't like what they see and they want you to change. None of us like want none of us feel good when we hear that. We are all who we are, right? Especially as adults. Now I know when you're a teenager, when you're younger and you're a child, you're still growing. You're still growing into learning. So you're still growing into an adult to understand yourself completely. When you're a child, you're still in the growing phase to becoming becoming a whole person, an adult. But as adults, all of us as adults, we are who we are, pretty much. And as a matter of fact, as we all know, the older you get, the more the more set we are in our ways, right? It's very difficult to change at this point, unless there's some catastrophic thing that happens in life that causes us to take pause and reassess our life. Or midlife crisis is another example, is it's something that shakes us to our core, and it wakes us up. It's like a wake up call that we forces us to reassess life. um, and so uh, and even in those situations, I know people that even with catastrophic things that have happened to them, it may not necessarily guarantee that they're going to change. As a matter of fact, I do know people that have not changed. It may have been shaken and um, shocked to the major changes that have happened to their lives. But then once everything got back to an equilibrium again, they still remained to the core of the person they were before that catastrophic event. So there's no guarantee. Although a lot of people, in many cases, people do change. And actually, on the flip side, I do know somebody that had a health problem, and after the health problem, they became a much nicer person, more grateful, more humble of life, and grateful for the people in their lives, and their attitudes have changed dramatically, 180 degrees. So there's examples on both sides. I just want to say it's not a absolute. Okay, it's not. I don't want to say that everyone that's had a catastrophic event that's happened has become a better person. I don't. That's not true, because I know of people that have not changed, and I don't know the reason why that's the case. But that, unfortunately, that is life. Sometimes it's not enough. Something major happens to something major that happens to somebody is not enough for them to reassess their life and realize that maybe there are some changes that will help them become a better person. Um, but so yeah, that's just something that it's not a good thing when you don't feel that you're being liked. In time, you will lose yourself and your own identity within the relationship. So when this keeps going on, where you feel you're not being accepted for who you are, you're not being liked for who you are, in time, you will lose yourself and your own identity within the relationship, because you just get to a point where you can't be yourself. Or you're afraid to be yourself, because every time you be yourself, then you get criticized, right? Or you see a disapproving look on your partner's face, right? When you feel someone doesn't like you, it puts you in a position where you're not at ease, and you can't be yourself. And then eventually, if you can't be yourself, you lose yourself, not in a physical sense, but in a metaphorical sense. You lose yourself, and you don't you lose your you don't even remember you lose sight of your own identity, which is very important. Have you ever been with people who don't know their identity? They came and answered a simple question what is your favorite ice cream flavor, right? People who have been so out of touch with themselves, they can't even answer a question that's personal to themselves. um it's really sad. As a matter of fact, I've seen people who had to rely on their partners to answer a personal question, and that's really sad when you get to that level where you don't even know who you are. um so that's why it's very important that we realize these signs of what is real love versus what's not love. um So in time, you lose yourself and your own identity within a relationship. Gradually, you subconsciously despise yourself as you allow your partner to define your happiness and steal your joy, resulting in an unhealthy codependent relationship. And folks, that's how many of us end up in these codependent relationships. Our partners have exhibited some toxic, questionable type of behaviors, and I would say they're destructive behaviors. They're counterproductive to what facilitates real love. And when you're with a partner who is not exhibiting real love, and they're exhibiting all the opposite things that we've talked about here, um, this is something where you're not only will your self-esteem start to erode, but you won't. It's a gradual slipping down the spiraling down in your relationship. Okay, it's a gradual shift that you don't notice, but it's going the wrong direction. Okay, when you're in that kind of relationship, you subconsciously despise yourself as you allow your partner to define your happiness and steal your joy, resulting in an unhealthy codependent relationship. And that is what codependency is when you lose yourself, your own identity, and you're just in the relationship to with someone who's toxic. You're codependent on them for to and letting them define your happiness and your value as a person. That's a very dangerous, unhealthy position to be in. And that's why finding happiness, you'll hear me often say you need to find your own happiness. And the happiness has to come from within, because when you're trying to seek happiness outside yourselves, you're relinquishing the control. You're allowing others to define what your happiness is, and that's not a healthy place for you to be in. Because if you let someone else define your happiness, then your life revolves. Your happiness is going to revolve around that person. So when the person's unhappy, you're going to be unhappy, because you're basing all your life and your happiness on that one person. And when that person's happy, then you're happy. When that person's not happy, then you're not happy. So ultimately, you've lost yourself. You've commingled, and you've melded yourself to that person, and you basically lost your own identity at this point. And that's what codependency is all about. Is when you're codependent on somebody else, you can't stand in your own truth, realize who you are as a person, realize your value as a person, right? Know what makes you happy, not letting someone else define what your happiness is. So this is very important. And so it's important to keep in mind what real love is, which is liking. They actually like you for who you are. And that's gonna wrap up the 4 signs of what real love is. So as a recap, the 4 signs are: when partners R for respect each other, E for empathize with each other, A to accept each other, and L to like each other. Those are the 4 signs of real love. So folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, if you resonate with it, please feel free to click like and click share. I'd love to hear your comments or questions that you may have. Please post them in the comments section. And definitely, if you please remember to subscribe to my channel so that you can be notified of my future videos that are coming up. So today's Christmas Eve. I want to wish you guys a happy Christmas Eve. And I hope you have a wonderful Christmas day tomorrow. And I hope it's filled with love, real love. So anyway, folks, I hope you have a blessed day tomorrow, and I will see you soon. All right? Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.